Hey, what's happening? Happy Friday to everybody. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early. It's 4 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Yes, I'm running late this morning. Let me tell you why. On Fridays, I get up at 2:30. I start looking through all my news feeds, computer, phone, everything, and intervention is on in the middle of when I get up. My morning, you guys middle of the night. It's on TV, and I always get sidetracked watching these intervention shows when I'm supposed to be doing my research to do this YouTube video. That's why I run late a lot of times on Fridays. All right, anyway, I told you guys this is kind of like my confessional. I talk about things here that I've never told anybody a lot of times, or I might have just talked about in NA or AA groups. By the way, personally, I prefer AA groups. I told you guys that I used, I was prescribed methadone. Methadone got me into recovery. Methadone saved my life. And there's a lot of NA groups that consider that still using. They have this attitude about it, and I do not consider it still using in any way, shape, or form. And AA groups were much more accepting of that. So I was going to a lot more, even though I didn't really factually consider myself an alcoholic. I would go to AA groups. Just a tip for you guys. All right. There's something that still carries a lot of weight and shame in my life. I started thinking about this, and I started to think about the toll it takes on America. And I started to think how conservatives, Republicans are actually enablers. And I mean that with all sincerity. For the 21 million Americans that are considered addicted to drugs. The link will be right down below for that. 21 million Americans are addicted to drugs. Out of those 21 million Americans, this is surprising because I thought it would be more, 2 million of them are opiate addicts. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that, for some reason, I lost my moral compass. And I would do this. I would shoplift. I've never admitted this to anybody, and it still carries weight. This shame with me. And once I got clean and sober, it's not something I would do. And I noticed that using this drug numbs you to the extent that I didn't have that moral compass. That I didn't feel stealing was bad. I knew it was legal and everything, but it didn't bother me. I would steal. I would shoplift when I was using opiates. And this is something I've never admitted to anybody. It's still one of the most, I don't know why, but shoplifting is just, to me, it's one of the most shameful. It still carries the weight of shame with me. And I'm admitting this for the first time on here. The reason I'm talking about this too is because I guarantee there's thousands, millions of other people just like me out there that are either still using and still doing this and still stealing and shoplifting, or are in recovery and know exactly what I'm talking about. So I am not alone in this. I know that I got this from going to NA groups and AA groups. It made me realize that I am not bad. I'm not a bad person. I'm not evil. And I could talk about it too, because once I got into recovery, today I wouldn't steal anything. Even if I walked out of the store with a 5-cent candy and I didn't pay for it, I swear on the Holy Bible, I would walk back in and give them the 5 cents. I tell them I walked out accidentally and pay for. I swear on the Holy Bible today. And it's not just because it's illegal or because I think I get caught or anything like that. It's just because it's the right thing to do. It's not mine. And I'm paying for it. It's just how it works, how society works. And this was gone when I used, and I realized the toll that this takes on America. With drug addiction takes such a huge toll on the economy. Every month, at least when I was truck driving or working as an architectural draftsman, I would take at least one day out of every 2 or 3 weeks off because I just couldn't make it to work. I had been up for 2 days or 3 days. I just, there's no way I could function in a work environment or drive a truck on a major highway. And, the time I missed, I would miss at least 20 days a year, at least. I took from the companies that I worked for. I drove for a magazine company, and they distributed pornographic magazines, Hustler, Penthouse, stuff like that. And they would bring back all the magazines that didn't sell. They'd have a whole room of magazines that just hundreds of thousands of magazines that didn't sell. And they were telling the publisher that they were destroyed. but they weren't destroying them. They were repackaging them. They told the publisher that they were destroyed, and they would resell them, not claim the taxes on them or anything. And I wanted a piece of this action, so I would take some of those magazines and I'd sell them to convenience stores. And this was a big source of money for me. The statute of limitations is up, so don't bother trying to contact the, if you're one of my trolls, don't bother trying to contact, or go ahead, do whatever you need to do. But all right. And I realized too how Republicans, conservatives, the GOP, people that vote for them are the enablers of the 21 million drug addicts in the United States right now. They are the enablers. They tend to blame immigrants, bringing this poison and this stuff in here. That's all. This drives me insane. I have another video all set to go about the napkins, the piece of paper supposedly soaked in fentanyl in the door handles, which is a myth. I'll download that video after this one because I've been waiting to download that one. Okay, now onto the main thing here. When I was using, I started shoplifting. Like I said, I've never admitted this to anybody. I still have a huge sense of shame. Now, 16 years since I've been clean, like I said, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't even take a 5-cent candy now. Just because it's just not mine. I wouldn't want anybody to take anything of mine, and I'm not going to take anything of anybody else's. Do unto others the golden rule and all that. That's, really, that's how I feel in my heart today. But back then, that was gone. When I used to use opiates, I had no moral compass. There was part of me, too, that felt that I was spending such a huge amount on drugs, 100, 200, 300, up to 500 easily dollars a day, every week, every year, that I needed to recoup some of that. And it would make me feel better at the end of the day. If I got something for free, it would balance out in my mind. It was a skewed sense of morals. And I know it wasn't just me doing this. I've heard other people talk about this, especially with opiate addiction. It takes away your emotions and your moral compass. You don't feel love. You don't feel hate. You don't feel embarrassment or shame or any of that. And that's why I realized the road back to into recovery is a long road, because you have to get to the root of why you want to get numb in the first place. Let me talk about a few of the instances. There's one instance I remember in particular where I went into a chain grocery store, and I went in there with the intention of stealing. I had 10 bags, a bundle of heroin that I just bought. I had money, but this is what I did. And it was I put it in the trunk of my car, the bundle, and then I walked into the store, and I was looking for something to take that I could sell or pawn to equalize the money I spent. And I took two copies of Seabiscuit. It was the movie Seabiscuit. I think it was actually VCR tapes back. No, it wasn't VCR. It was a VCR. It was DVD. It was 2 DVDs of Seabiscuit, I think. I think that's what it was. The movie had to be made before 2006. Anyway, I took 2 copies of it, and I was caught. And I was caught going right out the door. And the person said, I didn't run or anything like that, because the person said I'd be charged with assault and all this other stuff if I ran. And the cop that ended up coming, this was in the hometown where I went to high school too. The cop that came was a guy I graduated with from my graduating class, the cop. And we went out to my car so he could get my information, my license and all that, and write down the name. And I was banned from the store. But we were leaning against the trunk of my car, which contained a bundle of heroin right there. And in my mind, I wasn't even nervous about this. I was kind of amused by the whole thing. That's what I mean. You're so numbed up that you don't realize danger. You don't feel love or hate or morals or anything. There was no moral compass. There's other times when I stole from my friends. I remember this one guy that would come to me, and he was too scared to go into the city to buy bundles of drugs, and he'd have me do it. And one day I was tweaking on crack or whatever, and I just wanted more money. So I took his $60 and I just stole it. Locked my door, never answered again, blew him off, stole his money. He came back to me. He was all mad. This was maybe about 2-3 weeks later. I avoided him. I ran into him. You know, he's like, "What, dude? What the f?" You know, all this other stuff. And within 5 minutes, he gave me another $80. Gave me another $80. 3 weeks after I stole from him, I ripped him off, and I ripped him off again. I don't think this is funny. I'm not saying this to be funny. When I was making amends, the step number 8, there's steps leading up to it, but step number 8 is making amends. I went to go find him. He's dead. He overdosed. This is a guy I went to high school with. He overdosed shortly after. A couple of years after that, maybe a year into me getting clean, sometime around 2006, 2007. So he's gone. At least 3/4 of the people that I used to use with are dead now. My age, they're gone. But I talk about this because I realize the drain on society is just incredible, and it's America's problem. It's American citizens' problem. It's people's problem. It's not the brown people from across the border that are causing all these problems. Like I was saying, it makes me angry. The Republicans tend to blame immigration and the big scare of fentanyl, and all this other stuff. They're taking the blame. They're not putting the blame on the addict. They're not letting the addict solve the problem, his own problem, like he should to get into recovery. They're blaming it on something else until the problem comes back to the addict, that it's his choice and his addiction and his disease, and he needs to solve it, and it's his choice, his disease completely. They're acting as enablers. They're blaming somebody else for addiction in the United States. I'm going to leave you guys with one more story. They talk about, like blocking the borders. We got to stop this stuff from coming in the country. There was, back in 1989, I was addicted to cocaine, and I went to California. I went to San Jose, California, and I landed. I didn't have any connections, and I started drinking, and I wanted cocaine or crystal meth. And I couldn't find any. And that night, I got more and more drunk, and all I could find was little pills of caffeine you could buy in a store. And I crushed them up because the addiction was so strong that I needed anything that was similar to this buzz. I crushed up the caffeine tablets and stored them. I got very, very sick. I thought I was going to end up in the hospital that night. And this is what I'm talking about. If you stop something from coming across the border, it's not going to solve the problem whatsoever. It's probably going to make the situation more dangerous, because the addict will just find something else. We'll just move on to whatever he can get his hands on, huffing, whatever, anything that replaces whatever they can't get. It's not the cause of our problems, and it's not the way to solve our problems by blocking the border or building a wall or blaming Mexicans or South America or immigrants for this problem. It's a disease and it needs treatment. Recovery is possible. You guys have a good Friday.